tidings of Dyfed, and during his absence the care of the kingdom had fallen on the younger man. Though the king had, of course, gone royally attended, he had not taken with him the main body of his fighting men. So when Bodin rode out, as he did almost daily to check the kingdom's boundaries and visit the guard towers, he rode with an armed escort. They were with him now. They had dismounted beyond a rocky bluff, out of the sea wind, to rest the horses and share out the barley cakes and thin ration wine. They were some 15 miles from home. Within minutes of the alarm, the troop was mounted and riding hard for the steep coombe that led down into a sheltered bay which the local fishermen used for harbour. "How many?" It was the officer riding at Bodin's side. His name was Howell. "Hard to say. 5 ships, but I don't know how many men one of their warships will take. Say 40 to a ship, 50, perhaps more." "Enough." Howell's voice was grim. "And only 50 of us. Well, at least we'll have the advantage of them as they try to beach and get ashore. What can they be planning to do, so far from their own borders? A quick raid and then away? That wouldn't avail them much here. There's only that village half a league up the coombe. Poor fisher folk, hardly worth their spears, one would think." "True enough," said Bodin. "But armed as they are, I doubt if they mean us well. I don't think they'll have come so far from their own shore territories just for what pickings they can find in the villages along this coast. And I doubt if these are outlaws from the shore. There are other possibilities. You must have heard the rumours." "Aye, stories of landless men putting across from Germany and the far north, and perhaps not finding enough of a welcome on the shore, and being driven to look for a footing elsewhere. You think that could be true, then?" "God knows, but it looks as if we're going to find out." "Well, but how to stop them?" "We can try, with God's help. And his help on these coasts tends to be very practical." Bodin laughed shortly. "They may have been hoping to come in with the tide, but by my reckoning it's just about on the turn, and you know what that means in Dead Men's Bay." "Yes, by God." Howell, who had lived all his life on that coast, spoke with fierce satisfaction. "They won't know those currents. Even our own fishermen won't try the bay when the tide's this way." "That's what I'm counting on," said Bodin cheerfully. But before Howell could ask what he meant, they had reached the edge of the coombe and pulled up their horses. The bay was small, where a narrow river, little more than a stream, ran steeply down to meet the sea. As it widened out at the mouth, it ran shallowly through pebbled sand, but with the tide high, as it was now, the sand was covered, waves washing right up to the turf. Out in the bay, fangs of rock jutted up, each in its swirl of white water. "Ah!" It was a note of satisfaction from Bodin. He was leaning forward in the saddle, peering down at the rough jetty of piled stones which served the fisherfolk for a landing stage. Beached high and dry in its shelter lay 4 small boats. As you say, all safe at home. He turned to give swift orders. 3 of the troopers wheeled their horses and galloped off inland towards the village that lay higher up the coombe. The rest sent their horses slipping and scrambling down the steep bank to gain the narrow strip of turf above the tide. The tide being just on the turn, and the breeze light and fitful, the Cornish men knew that no sails would suffice to bring the longships in. But their oars could. They were powerful ships and powerfully manned. "So, what's to do?" asked Howell. Bodin was already off his horse. "These are our seas. Let us use them." And presently, under his direction, the troopers had seized the 4 small boats that were beached there, and were manhandling them down from their safe moorings and into the edge of the tide. They were barely launched, half afloat, when the 3 men who had been sent to the village came down the little valley at their horses' fastest pace. On the saddle in front of each man was a bundle roughly tied in sacking. The leading trooper held a blazing torch high in one hand. A man by the boats gave a shout and pointed. "My lord! There they come!" Still far out, low in the water, the longships stole round the point. Their sails were furled and oars flashed in the sunlight.